to Two Humans Talking, the podcast where we talk about what it takes to actually thrive in today's modern fast world. I'm your host, Tiffany Simms, and today I am here with the wonderful Angelique, and I am so excited for us to chat about all of the things that are keeping us stuck and we're feeling heavy around because no one taught us how to
Mhm.
adult. And so I'm really excited to dive into that with you today. Angelique, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for this beautiful platform. And I'm just excited to be able to contribute to it. So thank you.
You are so welcome. So tell us who you
Yes.
are, where you're from, what makes, when you're not working, what
Yeah.
makes your soul sparkle?
Ooh, okay. So my name is Angelique MacArthur. I am from Markham, Ontario, Canada. So it's literally just outside of Toronto. I'm at the border of Toronto and Markham there. And so I really am supporting women in their 30s in transitioning into adulthood better. My goal is to help guide them, to help them get unstuck in where they're feeling in their 30s and just help them to learn skills that we should have learned when we were earlier that would really have helped us thrive today. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what I do. And what makes my heart soar is, well, two things. Like Baskin Robbins ice creams, like love it. It is probably like my whole family knows, like I love sweets, but like Baskin Robbins ice cream is it for me.
What's your
Currently,
flavor?
okay, well, currently it's Love Potion because that was for wrapping up Valentine's. It only comes around Valentine's. So I love Love Potion until it runs out. But of course, the classic has to be chocolate chip cookie dough. I've had many chocolate chip cookie dough ice creams in my time, and Baskin Robbins wins every time, just hands down. So
I love this.
definitely, yeah,
I love this.
yeah. And apart from that, then I'd say field hockey. I love field hockey. I've been playing it since I was 14. Yeah?
Yeah, I coach high school
Oh
field hockey.
my gosh. That's okay. So we got to
Yeah.
talk, girl. But yeah, I love field hockey, and it's my sport until I die. I love playing it. It's a good time.
It's so much fun.
It is.
And are you a competitive person or are you a competitive coach or are
Yeah.
you a like I do want just want you to become a good human coach?
Well, I don't coach. I just play. I play
Okay.
rec. So like I played all through from high school in university, and now I just play on a fun league. But this league's interesting because this is the first time I've been playing with it's like
Ed.
co-ed. So that's the first time, I haven't like obviously in, school and stuff, we didn't have that. So it's a really cool dynamic. And I get competitive when it's a friendly game, it's whatever. But when it is like we made it to playoffs or something, I'm all in. And
All
so
in.
I can switch on real quick. I don't take the friendly games too seriously. It is what it is. But yeah,
I
definitely when
love
it's
that.
like we're going for the gold, let's go.
I love that so
Yeah.
much. I am a controversial coach in that I
Okay.
don't actually care if we win or lose. I want
Okay.
you to be your best version of yourself.
Mhm.
And I want you to communicate with the players on your team.
Yeah.
And I want you to overcome conflict. And I want you to learn how to work with people even when they've agitated you and come
Oh yeah.
together for a common cause, even if there's personality conflicts. Like I want you to use this as a way to help develop the skills that you become a human I want to interact with and work with as an adult. So win
Absolutely.
or
Character
lose, like,
building.
yeah, yeah. If we
Huge.
win and you treated each other like absolute crap and you didn't
Yeah.
play together, I
Yeah.
don't care that we won. But
Right.
if we lost
Yeah.
and you just like gave everything that
Everything.
you had and you came together as a team and you worked together and you communicated and like you stuck by each other's side, like we
Yeah.
will go get ice cream every day of the week.
See, that is absolutely, and let me tell you, that's motivating enough. So I think that especially depending on the age range, ice cream for being great and building your character is enough motivation. It would motivate me, that's for
But
sure.
let me tell you, parents, the competitive parents, they do not like
Oh,
that philosophy. They want to win at
oh
all costs. And
no.
I'm just like, we need to be able to sleep with our head on the pillow at the end of the night.
Yeah, no.
I need to put my head on a pillow at the end of the night. And if me yelling at
Yeah.
your kid is what you think success is, like I'm not your coach.
Yeah, I mean, Canada, obviously a huge hockey culture, period, like ice hockey. And so I have a lot of friends who either played ice hockey and there was, the screaming hockey parents and, every sport has that for sure. But like it gets intense. It gets
Yeah.
really intense. Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know what? I was like, what is in my head? I was like,
Yeah.
what a tangent we've gone on. I love this squirrel hole. But then at the same time, we're like, we talked about wanting to talk about the
Yeah.
skills that no one taught us that we feel like we should have known as
Yeah.
adults. And I
Yeah.
feel like this is kind of one of them.
It is. Character building is really interesting because a lot of people just assume that you're gonna learn that in school because of like osmosis. And yes, you do definitely learn some character building skills, but a lot of the times it's something that it feels like it's really mm, automatically like assumed and kind of forced because it's like, oh, when you go to school, you have to be good in the classroom and you know what I mean? But it's not necessarily something that you carry outside of school. A lot of people have that persona where it's like, if I'm in school, this is just how I act in school. You know what I mean? Whereas that doesn't mean that outside of that, that's who they are. And so it's really good that you as a coach have made that your core focus because when school's over, they're going to be human beings and what they have learned. And we spent so much time in school that to come away from school and still be like, I don't know, like how to interact with people or just to be a good person. Like that's actually probably one of the biggest disservices, I think. So the fact that you're focusing on
Yeah.
that is huge.
Well, I think it's fascinating too. You're saying like we expect people to learn how to human through osmosis.
Yeah.
And this might sound icky, but it is true. We're expecting people to know how to human when the humans raising them don't necessarily have the emotional intelligence and the IQ and the regulation techniques and the skills that we expect of a 10-year-old. Most humans, adults don't have. So like how does that work? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
It doesn't. The reality is the biggest problem I always had with hearing from like people talking about adulthood and kids moving into adulthood was this idea of like they'll just pick it up, right? And so it felt like a lot of times, especially that the school boards and stuff are run by adults. It was like, why aren't we tailoring the curriculum to teach them about these things that we know are coming for them in adulthood? And so it felt like a lot of like passing the baton, like, oh, they'll figure it out and like it's a rite of passage. And rather than people saying like, no, we need to do the work to really support them in doing this. And maybe that starts with me. Now, that's not everybody. Obviously, there are a lot of people who are working through that for themselves, but a lot of people are also just doing what they also learned and what they knew. Right. And so it's really hard sometimes to see that from this side of it. You're like, no, I am like, I am that person. I am the one who's like emotionally regulated and all that. It's really easy to say that, but when you notice it in other kids, it's like, huh, like it's really good. There's a lot of mirroring and reflection there. And some people just don't want to do it. Like the reality is they're just like, I just don't want to do it. So I'm just gonna leave this to the next person to deal with. And then some people are like, I'm all in to do it, but they may not feel like they're necessarily ready to teach that. Right. They're just like, I'm just learning it myself. And I can absolutely respect that and understand that. I sometimes feel that way too, but I feel like somebody has to go first. Like somebody has to try,
amen to
right?
that.
That's just the reality.
Well, so I'm like, let me get settled in. I want to
Adjust
like
yourself, girl.
come all
Adjust.
into this conversation. So
Yeah.
I am a 40-year-old woman,
Yeah.
the time that we're recording this.
Mm.
And like I feel like I'm coming into the back end of the someone should have told me season where I'm realizing that I think that people were telling me the whole time and I wasn't in a position to understand the lessons that they were trying to teach me because I didn't have the context yet.
Right. Right.
And so like things like why didn't anyone tell me that I was going to start growing facial hair or
Mm.
my mom probably was and I was just like you're a weird old lady. Like
Yeah.
I could not
Right.
receive it.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, there's just like these little things where I'm like why didn't anyone talk about this? And then I'm
Mm.
like but wait, did they? Because I guarantee we'll go back to my
Mm.
high schoolers. I
Yeah.
guarantee there are things that I have shared with them,
Hmm.
trying to transfer knowledge, trying
Yeah.
to transfer not just information, but like my thought processes so they can learn the process, not just the answer. That they're going
Exactly.
to wake up one day and be like, no one taught me
Oh,
this. And it's
yes.
because they didn't have the context for it yet. So I'm
True.
curious, like, what from your perspective and what you do and what you see, like, where does
Yeah.
that conversation land with you?
Yeah. It is a
I'm
really
like
good
so
point.
in. I'm like, let me get closer and crawl into your soul over here.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Context is huge. Also, time period is huge, right?
Mm.
So think about it this way, like our parents grew up in a time that maybe talking about facial hair as for a woman was very taboo, or just they didn't know how to approach it, right? And so they may drop hints, but they weren't directly saying it per se, right? And so looking back, you're like, I think I remember that conversation that like my mom said something, but it was never direct. And so this day and age, I think we're more aware of it's really important to be like clear and like saying like this is actually what is to come, as opposed to, well, I did say something, but I just, I thought you'd pick it up, right? And so
My
it's
mom was
just
like,
also,
"Why do you think there's a whole aisle of hair removal and bleach in Walmart?" And I was
yeah,
like, "I don't know. I never put two and two together." And she's like, "Because it
yeah.
wasn't important yet."
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's true. And that really does lend to the whole reticular activating system, right? Like
Mm.
when you are about to buy a new car, you may not have noticed that car ever on the road until you were now like it was something important to you and you were focused on it, right? So it's probably the same thing. And of course, like as a teenager, you're also in your own bubble, right? Like
Facts.
you have the bubble of high school, everything is in this world, good, bad, like, you're not really thinking outside of that. And so when you become an adult, it's suddenly like, oh, like I didn't think about these things because A, I never had to. So yeah, if like your mom's like, okay, I'm, figuring out what to do with this whole situation, you're not thinking about that at 16 because it's not your situation. So you're very right in saying that. And it's like very much thinking of like the time and the context of things and just like where you are in your life. I think that having the opportunity to be more direct as we are now, like you saying to your players, like it is important to be a good person. And here's why. Here are the character traits you need to build. And here's why is so important because kids are very much like, in one ear, out the other, and not necessarily on purpose. Just again, it's not relevant to them. It's not in their bubble. It's not something that they think long term on. And so
You
it's
don't
really important.
understand you are old.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. And so if you're over like 25, it's like you're
You
old.
were born in the 1900s.
Oh my gosh. Like, yeah, like you are before the new millennium. Like, oh my gosh. Right. And so that's just their thought, right? And every teenage group has that. Every, group has that. And then it's just weird when you become like you enter your 30s, especially as a woman. I'm sure boys and men have their thing. I can't speak to it per se, but I'm sure they all have their thing when they're entering certain time periods. But as a woman to enter your 30s, it's so confusing, it feels, because it's like a mesh of like, I'm not a kid and I'm not necessarily an adult, but ever so much is expected of me suddenly.
Yes.
And that's where I started finding the disconnect was coming for me, and where I was like, why didn't anybody teach me this before they started saying, you should know this, right? It felt
Well,
like there was a,
what type of, let's dig into that. So what are
yeah,
things that were popping up for you? Because I think I am all on board. Like I wholeheartedly like agree with you. There's that weird transition
yes,
between like, oh, I've been doing this for a minute. I'm actually the grown up. It's like the first time I was in charge of the bus of high schoolers on the way to a game. I'm sitting there as like a 38-year-old woman, and I'm like,
yeah,
I'm responsible for all of these
yeah,
children. I don't even have children of my own. Like, when did this happen? Because I'm a
yes,
baby. I'm the one that's supposed to be sitting on the bus, right? So, like,
exactly,
what were
yeah.
some of those things for you that you felt
Hmm.
like you were supposed to have together that
Okay,
just like you were like, how did I get here to be responsible for this?
yeah, let me hit you with that because in my 20s, it felt like the common thread was you're young, have fun, go do what you want to
Mm.
do because you have time. That was the premise, right? Like, you want to travel. I moved abroad. It was like, of course you're going to do this now. Like, you know what I mean? It was like, obviously. And then it was like in my late 20s, probably like, let's say like 27, 28, the questions and the comments started changing. It would be like, I would go to like a friend's wedding and it would be like, when's your turn? And it was like you would never have asked me that when it was like when my friend got married, in our early 20s, because you'd be like, oh, you have time. And then it was like, when's your turn? And you're like, what? I'm like, not, that's not even on my radar. I'm just, I'm having fun and just enjoying this moment for my friend. And then it would be like, oh, you're still at that job? Okay. Like, and you're just like, what? Like, what's wrong with the job? Or like, oh, you're still living at home? When are you gonna buy a house? Like, you know what I mean? And you're just like, I never thought that these things were problems until it suddenly was like society was like, at this age, you need to have your career, you need to be married, you need to have kids on the radar, and you need to have a house, right? And it's very interesting how that world suddenly becomes like the focal point and you now feel behind. When a day
Mm.
before, I was like, I'm good. Like, I have no problem. Like, my friends are getting married, cool, 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 like whatever, doing our things. And now suddenly, like, oh, like, when am I getting married? Oh man, like I don't have a house. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just weird how that changes. And then it's like this really, I feel like it's this big gap that people are expecting women to jump through, but everybody's falling in the gap. They're like, you're over here and you're in your 20s, and it's like, oh, just over on this side, you're in your 30s and you're a full adult now. So, oh, but to get over here, oh, you'll figure out how to do it. And people are like, okay, and they jump and they just fall in the gap, like, oh no, like you're still not married yet? Fall through the gap. Like, like, oh no, you didn't, you're not working at the bank when, like, I mean, that's a real job. Like, you know what I mean? It's like all of these things. And it's like, why didn't you just give me the bridge for the gap? Like, if I learned these things, not necessarily about the job and getting married, but even just like personal finance. Like maybe a lot of times people are like, I don't have a house because I don't have the money because I never learned about money, right? Like, so it's like, why are we jumping these gaps and like we're not teaching foundational life skills? And that's where the problem stems. Like for me in school, you have such a great opportunity. It's like school's your full-time job for like 12 years of your life. You know what I mean? And then it's
Mm-hmm.
like for so many kids to come out and be like, I don't know how to, I don't know, have a conversation with somebody or, you know, if I get a job, how to like have a different tone, have a different way of speaking. It feels like, oh, how come nobody taught me this? It's like we spend a lot of time teaching things that I'm not saying are irrelevant, but I think need to be tweaked in order to be like in the modern day, it's really important that they learn these skills. Like they never taught personal finance when I was in high school, and that sure would have went a long way, but it's like we had something called civics class, which I don't even remember what that was even about. And it was like, it just felt like it wasn't really a good setup for adulthood. Um, and I think that that's where a lot of the problems started coming when those conversations started changing, and that's how it felt.
Mm. Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's so interesting that like home economics,
Yeah.
personal finance, automotives, like
Mm-hmm.
all of those things got removed from the school system because they were beneath us, right? Like it's like,
Part.
oh, you don't want to grow up and be a trash man. That is a paying job.
I'm like, they probably get paid more, like more than
The
you
own
think.
and
So
the
I don't know
owner of
why
the
we're
trash
saying this.
company is
Yeah.
probably sitting real pretty.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I'm saying.
and he learned how the business ran probably from standing on the side of the dump truck picking up trash at 6 a.m. when he was 17. But it's
That
just
part.
almost like we extracted
Yeah.
those life skills out of the curriculum because they were
Yeah.
beneath us and we all
Mm.
needed to like advance ourselves into these more acceptable, prestigious type roles. And then it left
Yes.
these people with these prestigious titles
Yeah.
being like, I don't know which way is up actually. Now that I'm
And
here, I don't know
exactly.
how to bake a cake for my daughter's birthday.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. No, it's true. Like, and I understand, in different households, people may have different roles, right? Like, so it's like maybe you're like, I don't need to know this because that's just not what I do in this household, and that's fine. But when you're on your own, you're doing it all. You know what I mean? And I think it's just, even if you get to a point where you're like, I can pay somebody to do these things, cool. No shade on that. I love that. But you should still know for the basics as, a foundational skill, because these are skills that are timeless, right? There's
yes.
things that come and go, but these things are timeless. You're always going to have to know how to manage your finances. You're always going to have to know how to speak to people. Like these are things that don't go away. And so it's kind of like, why just why didn't we spend more time with that? And I remember I was the first year in Ontario here, where we didn't have like home ec was taken away and shop and stuff. And in high school, it was like an elective. Um, but again, it was like people just went because it was like we get to cook food. Like, like it was like I get to eat, so it was like cool. But it wasn't like we learned the skill of it because it was just for a semester. Like
Yeah.
in a semester of that in grade 9 is like the
So
reality is,
funny.
do you really remember that in grade
I'm
12
going
and
back,
on?
like I'm
Yeah,
going back now, and it's funny because I might have been one of the last classes to have
yeah,
personal finance. And I remember thinking, why do I need to learn how to balance a freaking checkbook? It's
checkbook.
all on, like I have this thing. It was like
Yeah,
I can go online. It wasn't on a phone, but it's like I
yeah,
can go online and see my bank balance. Why do I
yeah,
or go to the ATM? What do
right.
I need to balance a checkbook for?
Yeah, yeah,
Right? Like,
yeah.
and now I'm
That's true
like,
though.
but in
Like
at the same time, though, that is the skill of understanding your money coming in and your money
coming
going out,
out. Yeah.
right? You know, like maybe the checkbook itself is archaic, but the
Right, right.
concept of understanding the life cycle of your
Yes.
dollars
Oh yeah, for
is
sure, for
actually
sure.
a skill. And I do
Yeah.
remember us like the vibe was that if you went to like the vocational school, that meant you weren't smart.
Oh yeah, same here. Like so
But yet
in
I can't, like I had to learn how to change my oil as a 30-year-old because I was like, what is going on?
exactly. And
Yeah.
so it's just interesting how I think the just like you said, we think it's beneath us, certain skills, but then it's like now look when you have like generations like Gen Z, fantastic generation. I'm not going to knock them. They just need some support because the reality is they're like, I don't know how to do these things. A lot of times too, we live also in a time where kids are a little bit maybe over coddled. So across the board, not every single one, but across the board, they may have a little bit more like cushioning than a lot of other generations necessarily had. Millennials, we got a bad rap. So I remember that. It was always like, oh, this generation, they just, they don't know how to do anything. And it was like, again, who is teaching me? Right. So that's why I don't blame Gen Z for what they're saying. And when they say things like, I'm going for an entry level job and I'm asking for 80K. And you're like, okay, just got that fresh piece of paper, from university or college. Don't have the skills to make 80K yet, but okay. And it's like, I don't blame them for saying what and asking for what they're asking for. I think that the problem is that there are adults who didn't show up for them in the way they needed with being maybe a little firm and also letting them try and fail a bit more.
Mm.
These are skills that are timeless skills.
It is so funny that you say this because, like, I agree with you. Like, I think that every generation after me is brilliant in their own ways.
Absolutely.
And I believe that, like, when I look at my high schoolers, it's so fascinating to me that on one hand, they are the most self-aware, there is no hesitation in for telling you what they need and where their boundaries are, and that today's
Yep.
like they know them and they know how
Yes.
to advocate for it.
Mhm.
I find it fascinating that, but though that they cannot see beyond the end of their nose, and I don't mean that derogatorily,
No, I know
they
what you mean.
truly do not have a concept of how they fit into a bigger picture.
Right.
Whereas my whole life was about the big picture and I didn't have
Right.
autonomy of myself. And so, like, I'm
Absolutely.
excited to watch that pendulum find its way in the middle
Yeah.
between like fully self-absorbed aware
Right.
and how you fit in to be this like really amazing human in the middle. And you had said something else about like, that maybe there's a little bit too much coddling. And it's
Mhm.
interesting because I do agree with that. And I also think that we treat children like talk to them like they're adults and we're trying to heal our own crap through them. So we
Mhm.
talk to them like they're a 30-year-old adult instead of talking
Right.
to them like an 8-year-old.
Right.
And so
Oh
like,
yeah.
so
Yeah, yeah,
they're
yeah.
in this like weird space
Yeah.
of like being coddled while
Hmm.
also on the same level of as an
Hmm.
adult because we want them to know their value. And like that has got to be confusing.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I totally agree with you. There are adults who feel like, I guess a way for them to heal themselves is by saying like, I'm going to make sure that you don't do this. And it's like, that's not necessarily the play either, right? Like, I think they're, especially for 8-year-olds, like, let them be an 8-year-old. Like, the reality is like they're not coming back to being 8. Let them enjoy every stage you're in. I believe you should enjoy, right? And so there are ways to teach them responsibility at the level that they're at. It doesn't mean that you're asking them to be like, I need you to like mow the lawn and do all these things that your 18-year-old brother will do at 8. It's like, yeah, give them responsibility. I think and that's also what you said about the pendulum. There's one side who's like maybe a little like too hard on it. And then there's the other side that's like, oh no, don't worry, I'm going to do it all. And so I have met both sides, kids on both sides. And for a lot of people, and I can speak for myself because I came from an immigrant family household. And for a lot of immigrant families, like schooling and education is the most important. So a lot of times it'll be like, just focus on your books, I'll do the rest. And while that always has like good intentions, of course, it's the long-term effect where it's like when your mom and dad aren't around, can you boil an egg?
Mm.
Like, can you sustain yourself? Can you do the laundry, right? And also taking on a bunch of responsibility all at once is jarring. A lot of kids are going to university and they're just overwhelmed. They're like, I don't know how to manage my time and my calendar, go see friends, have like my homework to do, have a job, go do laundry and cook, like because it's all at once, right? Instead of like at 8, maybe they're helping you in the kitchen, you know what I mean? And they're learning as they go, so it's not overwhelming.
I
And
love that.
that is why I think it's a disservice that we don't really focus on these kinds of things more structurally in school. Because at 20, when you leave university and you're outside the bubble of academia, and now you're in the real world at a job, and you're just like, okay, like, gotta figure it all out on my own. It's like, and then people are like, oh, you'll be fine, you'll figure it out. It's like, that's a real disservice because it lends to people feeling like I said, overwhelmed, might lead to anxiety, depression. It might exasperate that, right? Then when we didn't need to do this. So I just hate the expression of like, it's a rite of passage. I'm like, let's stop saying that and just teach them what they need to know. Like, it doesn't need to be hard for no reason. Some things you're not going to be able to teach them. They're going to learn on their own as an adult. That's just the reality. But for the things you can, then just teach them. Like,
Yeah.
I just don't understand. And I'm not here to knock parents. I'm not here to knock teachers. What I'm saying is my goal with what I do is to support them because the reality is they can't do it all on their own. And sometimes parents, teachers, they just don't have the bandwidth. They're just like, I want my kids to learn these things, but I don't have the bandwidth, or they don't feel like they can because they're like, I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So,
It's just
you
like
know,
going to a doctor, and sometimes you have to outsource. If you go
yeah,
to your general practitioner, they outsource you to a specialist because it's outside of their scope of practice and what they can manage within the confines of their bubble. And
right.
so like I think it's the same. And so like as you like such a good conversation. Where do you start that conversation of like bridging the gap? Like
Mm,
what can we give someone today who
yeah.
feels like they're falling in the gap? Like
Yeah.
how do we help them right now, maybe take an action or two today to start building the bridge over
Yeah, for sure.
to where they need to be?
First, I would say assess what you need. Like what I need in my life may not look the exact same as what you need. Like all of my belief is that our life is one big thing. We compartmentalize a lot, and that's also to help like our mind compartmentalizes things. But the reality is it all acts together. If your relationships are out of whack, it actually does affect the way you show up in the other areas of your life too. It's like they're not just one by themselves standalone. And so I think assessing what you need, maybe you're like, I do need more support with financial help, and I just don't understand this, then put that down, and then also assess like, where are you doing really well? And it's just really finding like, okay, I'm balanced here, but maybe a little out of balance here. And balance is, I remember hearing Myron Golden say this, and he said, balance is a
Love me some Myron.
Oh my gosh, you too, girl. Yes. It's like balance is a season, right? And so we're always talking about like it's gotta be this all the time, but sometimes it's not always. Like sometimes you're more focused on something than another area. And being honest about that and being like, okay, like right now, maybe my focus in my season is field hockey and I want to be the captain. And maybe that means I'm doing more work and and that's okay. That's a season for your life, right? So understanding that if you're out of balance, then it's not necessarily a bad thing, but just finding out like what's really important to you for this season of your life. And if it's like I
Personal
need to
agency.
exactly. And not being afraid to say that. Also, I will say setting boundaries is really important. And the reason why I say that is because if you can learn to start setting boundaries for yourself, you actually are filling in the gaps that you didn't think that it would help necessarily, but it does. Because when you're saying to people, like, this is what I need, and this is how I'm showing up, and this is like what I'm expecting, not just from you, but from myself, it allows people to meet you where you're going or fall back so that you can go where you need to go. A lot of times, we allow people and what they think to get in the way of us growing. And it's really important that we recognize like, where can I create boundaries so that I can fill in these gaps for myself without somebody else necessarily telling me what that is for me and dictating that for me. So I think those are two areas that could help with starting
I
that
love
journey.
that.
Yeah.
I love that. I also, in my own personal experience, I think that a
Hmm.
really key piece has been letting go of any resentment of what you think someone should have taught you, because
Good
now we
point.
are grown-ups, and it
Yes.
is now our, you know what, people in our lives did the best they could with what they had, and
Yes.
maybe they missed some gaps, but maybe there's some things that I don't have problems with because they did such a good job of making sure I was set up in that area. And so
Absolutely.
like now it's my turn to figure out where I'm at, where my gaps are, and taking
Yes.
responsibility of like learning what I need to learn to
Yeah.
build those bridges for myself. Like
I
that was
totally agree.
huge. It took
Totally
me a
agree.
long time to really get through that
Yeah.
because it's so much easier to be upset and
Totally.
stuck than it
Yeah.
is to like take ownership and action.
Yeah.
Um, but that's one of those ones where I was like, oh, if I could have figured that out a little bit sooner, I probably would have had
Mm,
less resistance and gotten where I was going a little faster than I had.
absolutely. I agree. And it's so easy to blame parents. It's so
Oh my
easy to
God, it's
blame.
so easy. I
It's
think that's
like,
what I know you said rite of passage, like we don't want to use that phrase anymore. I really genuinely
mm,
believe that it is a rite of passage to
yeah,
like think your parents are an idiot and messed you up and then get to the other side of that
fine.
and be like, oh my God, I owe them an apology.
And they're just waiting by the door, like, mm-hmm.
But
You
it goes
figured
back
it
to that
out?
like time and place and context.
Yeah, for
But I
sure.
think there is that season of like, oh my God, they did all of this wrong because you're
Yeah.
trying to find who you are and who you
Yeah.
want to be and the pieces of how you were raised that you want to bring with you and the parts that are stopping with you because you're
Hmm.
taking like pivoting. Like I
Absolutely.
do think that that is part of it. And then I know for myself, like
Yeah.
came back the other way. And I remember the first time I called my mom and was just like, I just wanted to say I was sorry.
Yeah.
And she's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, do you remember when I was insert age and
Mhm.
you said such and such and I blew up at you and thought you were an idiot?
Yeah.
I have this understand now. And she's like, yeah, that's gonna happen the rest of your life.
Yeah.
She didn't
Yeah.
say it in that like condescending cockiness, but from that place of knowing herself that
Yeah,
now she
exactly.
is that many years ahead and she just had 20, 30 years of having that like moment
Yes.
with herself where she was like eating crow. Where does
Totally.
that phrase come from? What does that even mean?
That's a
I
really good question. I love
I'm gonna have to
Asians like
Google
that.
that later because like what
That's a
does that
really good
mean?
one. I like
But
that.
yeah.
When I taught English in Japan, I remember my students asking me like, why do you guys say raining cats and dogs? And I'd be like, I don't know. That's a good question.
Did you ever figure it out?
I feel like I did, but now I don't remember. That was like 13 years ago. But
Oh wait,
yeah,
I think
I
I know
looked
the
it
answer
up.
for this one. I think I know the answer. Back when they had hay roofs
Okay.
and the cats and dogs, they would nest in the roofs, and if it rained, it would rain cats and dogs because they would
Oh,
be too heavy
okay.
and they come through the house.
Okay. That's good to know. I'm just gonna say that's true. I
It
like that
feels
answer.
right.
It does feel right. It absolutely does. Yeah. But I think what you're saying is absolutely spot on. We all are going to go, and this is something that you also sometimes it's like you just learn in hindsight. Like you're like, oh, mom, dad did know what they were talking about actually. And again, that's also a part of growing up in the experience of being an adult, right? Like sometimes you're gonna mess up yourself and you're gonna have to, apologize and do these kinds of things that you're like, it doesn't feel the greatest all the time, but it's really important to do. And um it's just an important skill again, right? Learning
Right.
to be able to do these things that it's like, if we could just start a little bit earlier, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that
Yes.
they're going to learn absolutely everything, but foundational life skills are really what help to make adulthood a success. And we are adults. If we're lucky, we're adults for the longest period of our life. So it's like,
Amen.
why aren't we setting ourselves up for wins more instead of people saying, I hate adulthood, it sucks, right? Like that's generally the
Life
consensus.
sucks and then you
Yeah.
die.
Yeah,
And hopefully
exactly.
you have enough
Yeah.
time to retire and enjoy it. And it's like, wait,
Yes,
that's not right either. No, no, no.
exactly.
That buck stops right
Exactly.
here.
Yeah, and then you wonder why kids are like, I don't want to grow up. Obviously, I wouldn't want you to if I kept hearing that about being an adult. But it's like being an adult is awesome. It's such a gift, it's such a privilege. And life skills really help you to navigate it better and make it more of a success and make it easier for you. Like, that's just the truth, right? So, yeah, I
This
think
has
that's
been
important for
one of
them.
my favorite conversations, like legit,
Really?
like so real, so like timely, so
Yeah.
never ending. It's like one
Yeah.
of those like always timely
Mhm.
conversations.
It is. It
And
is.
because
Every
like
generation needs it.
yes, and like as I'm hearing you talk, like it also allows me to reflect in my own life and my own journey through the gaps and how I navigated them and my feelings.
Yeah.
And like I just got to like have a moment of peace in my own heart where it was just like the season that I am currently in is recognizing, oh, this is like so
Oh,
gives me
yeah.
tingles to think about it. Um, I'm in the season of recognizing that my parents healed shit that I have no idea about to
Mhm.
allow me the setup for where I'm at now. Like there is literally
Mhm.
no way
Yeah.
that I would be this version of myself had
Right.
they not stopped things to then do things the way they did for me to say, I think I want to do it differently to get to where I am. And it's
Yeah.
like this weird meta mess, but it's like
Love it.
so freaking cool. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, when I say I love this conversation, like I just went on a whole journey and I appreciate that.
Oh, I'm glad. And I did too. Like, thank you for, you know what, like understanding that adulthood can have a possible rite of passage has, just allowed me to think deeper on that. But the reality is that I love what you said about forgiveness. And like, that's so important too, because the blame is the easiest thing. And we can always find something or someone to do that to for, but really to grow, you need to be able to take on that, like you said, like personal accountability, personal autonomy. It's really important. And I'm thinking about like, how can I even do that better for myself? Like,
So
you're
cool.
always growing up. So,
Oh
it
my
doesn't,
God, yes. That
yeah,
is there a truer statement? You are
yeah.
always growing
You're
up.
always
I like
growing up.
I'm writing that one down.
Yeah.
You're while I'm writing this down, how do we
Yes.
connect with you outside of the show?
Well, please find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is the adulthood or adulthood. When I talk to people in the States, they're like, adulthood? I'm like, is that a Canadian thing? I don't know. Adulthood. But the adulthood edit. Come say hi, come say hello. I'd love to meet you and just connect and hear more about you and your story.
You hear me say this all the time. Go be a human. Like, be a human with other humans in this world. We were not meant to do
Oh,
it alone. We weren't meant
no,
to learn every lesson the hard way. Like,
not at all.
it is such a gift to be able to learn through other people. It
Absolutely.
doesn't erase your own journey of learning,
No,
but it
no.
helps you smooth some of the bumps over
Yeah.
and have someone to lean into. So go be a
Yes.
human.
Yes.
Angelique, as we are wrapping this up, is there anything that
Yes.
was left on your heart that we didn't get to that you wanted to share today?
I want to say aging is not the problem. And I think that a lot of times that's again, like people are like, I don't want to get older. I don't want to like this part of life sucks. Aging is such a beautiful thing. And I really want to reframe that, especially for young people. Like, don't be afraid to get older. It's actually a beautiful process for you. And adulthood is something that allows you to expand. It allows you to feel joy. It allows you to be something that when you're a kid, you don't necessarily get to be, right? You're now fully in charge of you, and that's a beautiful thing. And I want you to embrace that and embrace getting older because every time you do, it's literally a gift. It's not something to be squandered, and it's not something to complain and gripe about all the time. Some things are going to come up, and you're like, "Oh, this sucks." But overall, it's such a beautiful thing, and I really want you to embrace that. I think it's really important.
Oh my God, that was like the perfect bow for this conversation. So, Angelique, thank you for being here. And with that,
Thank
that's Two
you.
Humans Talking, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this episode as inspiring and actionable as I did. If you're ready to stop just surviving and start living a life where your health, your relationships, and your career work together without the burnout, then it's time that you join the Modern Women's Society. Inside, I'll walk you through my life GPS system, a proven blueprint to help you have it all while thriving. You'll gain tools, coaching, and the kind of clarity that brings big dreams to life without the stress, overwhelm, guilt, and shame that the modern woman is used to. We're going to create a life where you feel energized and excited to wake up every day and fulfilled when you put your head on the pillow. Click the link below to learn more and join countless other women who are redefining success on their terms. Because the life you've dreamed about is closer than you think. I'll see you on the inside.